Hello and welcome to the season closeout of Off Defense. We've had a fantastic year. I don't know if we do this in seasons or we call this the regular weekly running show, but it is a regular weekly running show. We've had a couple dropouts. I was in Malta for a while on the Commonwealth Youth Forum. You'll be hearing about that in the next episode. But today, for the epic indie mix closeout of the year, I am joined in studio by Senor Ruel Johnson. Yes, Senor. Who needs no introduction as chief troublemaker for some amount of time. Critical thinker, social activist, writer, now working with the government but still using your voice to, what should I say? To raise concerns. That's what I like about you, right? Yeah. I've known Ruel for some amount of time, and he's here today for a number of reasons, but one of them being, I think we sometimes have a bit of a sparky, should I say sparky? Sparks can fly between Ruel and I sometimes, because we don't always agree, but we always respect each other, and I guess it embodies some of what I would love to see in the political culture in Guyana. You don't always have to agree, but you should be able to have respectful discourse and dialogue. And today we're also joined in studio. I'm being a bit humorous because it's the last show, by the jacket of Travis Chase. This is Travis Chase's jacket, ladies and gentlemen. He left his jacket in the studio, so we thought because for some reason in Guyana, people call you by what they see you on. So people see me and they say, hey, off defense, or over defense, or on defense. So people see Travis Chase and instead of saying, they'll call him Nightly News sometimes. So just the jacket of Travis Chase. Let me get this off screen. Hold on. Just throw it. And it's miraculously landed on a hook. Travis, your jacket is fine. So we were actually going to put the jacket on a chair and ask him questions, but Travis had gotten too upset. He's not here with his jacket today. So what I wanted us to do today is to start to close out, looking at, we've had a really tumultuous year. We had elections this year, May 11th, the change of administration. We've gone from a city that, let's just be honest, was filthy, just really dirty, to one that's looking cleaner. I don't think, it doesn't look pristine yet. It's probably going to be a while before that happens. But honestly, butterflies come out of my heart when I look at some of the drains around the city. But some of you nasty people are still contributing to the mess. Good heavens, please. So, Ruel, I'm going to open the floor here. We got a lot of things that we could touch on. You got any things you want to bring up off the bat?
No, the city issues, one. I mean, they say it's not pristine, but I usually walk from office to the car park. And the first night I remember doing it, it was a completely, I thought it was in a different place because when I turned from Brickdown onto Avenue Republic, I had a sort of a little movement of disconnect because did I turn on the wrong street?
Yeah.
Because it was...
Is this Guyana?
It's completely clean. And then a couple nights ago you walk and then there's the very ordered bus system and stuff like that.
With the chains.
With the chains and...
Okay, I don't know if we could take any kudos on Off Defense because we're coming up with the third installment on the minibuses and minibus culture. Okay. Right? But that's something we need to keep banging on until we get changes. And as a matter of fact, as we're in sort of semi-transportation, we're going to be all over the place today, right? But in semi-transportation, what is going on with our drivers on the roads today? Like literally a couple of days ago, got an account from a friend that said the accident that happened, I think is a couple of days ago, like last night, yesterday actually. There was an accident yesterday. A car and a minibus speeding down the road. Car ends up clipping the minibus. Minibus rolls over. Once again, many people seriously injured. Someone actually died. One person died. Why is it that people continue, no matter you tell them, please don't speed, don't drink and drive? Is it something with the advertising? Because Everywhere you go, whether it's on the side of the road, on the radio, at 3 in the afternoon, at 8 in the afternoon, we're like saturated with advertising for alcohol. Even the alcohol companies, they're paying people to sit on the radio and talk about alcohol. Does this have anything to do with it? Look at the Stag advert, right? Yeah. Where they have like Stag, this is how we lime or something, and you have the cars driving over the word. Right? Yeah. There's a lot of peering of driving and drinking.
This thing is that I don't see any evidence that we have a higher than usual DUI, drinking under influence, road fatality.
Are you saying just enough people are drinking and driving?
And what I'm saying is that the road fatality issue seems to be just a culture of recklessness.
Culture of
recklessness overall. I think the DUI aspect of it is part of it. But the overall thing is that traffic fatalities and traffic accidents and stuff are primarily a cause of people feeling that they shouldn't obey the rules. And of course,
where does that come from?
Lack of proper enforcement, the culture of people knowing that if it is that they infringe upon a traffic rule, the justice system will get them off with a little frick. If it gets the thing. So if it is there no penalties for bad behavior, littering is another comment, then you'll see the bad behavior replicated.
Good. I want to stick you right there on that point, right? I think that's like a golden sentence. Ruel is a writer, by the way, you know, he got a guy and a prize winner here. So I'd expect epic sentences like that from you. But where there is no punishment for bad behavior, right? People kind of feel is acceptable.
I see where you're going with this, but
it just becomes okay, right? Yeah. I don't know if you see where I'm going with it, but where I want to go with it next, right, is this has been on my mind all year. I'm sure it's been on your minds all year. But so the now government, when they were opposition, right, they brought to light a lot of shady, dodgy activity that was happening on the PPP, right? They brought to light, I remember one article that said $50 billion secret account uncovered by AFC. Yeah. My memory is good, right? So I actually think that was the headline. Other scams and things have been uncovered. We heard them when they took in office, and I mean, a lot of people went out and voted, and they're like, justice, because, I mean, you struggling at home with your dry dan or your shine rice and pepper, right? And struggling, and you just reading the paper and just seeing someone ran away with hundreds of millions of your tax money. So, and then they got into office, and we hear that $600 million, not any regular tennis roll money, was missing from the public service ministry. $28 million missing here. Another set of money missing there. But all of these people are still walking the street, and I bet Minister Westford is having the best Christmas shopping. You think your Christmas turn up? No, it didn't turn up at all. Like the people who have been stealing this money. But why is it if I run into your office, right, and I stole a puri, just a puri, not even with sour, off your desk, and ran away, I would get arrested. The officer would say, "Stop that man with the puri."
Well, before you get arrested, you might have to deal with me because I don't mess with puri.
So I'd have to even deal with you, right? So why is this bad behavior, unless it's good, unless thieving suddenly become good and none of us got the memo, right? Why is such bad behavior tolerated, and doesn't this contribute to a culture where even the little man that taking a little small raise from his corruption and thing, he didn't feel like he got to stop, right? Let me get off the thing. What do you think about this?
One of my favorite movies is the movie Training Day.
Yeah.
And there's a Washington character. And he had this little saying, he says, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
And to a great degree, and I'm not saying absolutely, but to a great degree, I think the present administration, I'm saying that I see the present administration as primarily a collection of well-meaning people. I would not be working with the administration if it didn't feel that way. But I think it's gone from a point to, we know X and X has been going on. But when we are now in office, we cannot prove that this is in fact illegal to a large degree. And where it is that we suspect that it's illegal, we can't necessarily prove how it's illegal. And you see a case where if it is that you have a government that says,
and by the way, right,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to break this down because I know there are really people at home now like,
what are you saying?
yeah, no. You mean, let me get this. You mean you could say like, we know this happened, it's illegal, but we can't now prove it's necessarily illegal. Or we know this money is missing.
We know it's missing. We know it's
but
wrong.
We can't prove.
Yeah, we know it's wrong.
You gotta be very.
If it is, we had.
Because I mean, I nearly passed out there.
Yeah, I saw. For example,
I need someone to hold me.
I saw, for example, Mr. Brassington, who's commanded a lot of things of scrutiny,
And
rightfully so.
you must all go visit his wine bar. It's on Alama Street, a lovely wine bar. I mean, on a humble salary, he's made quite a lot for himself. But go on, Ruel.
Yeah, but he's said, for example, that
Every glass of Mellor.
cabinet decided that this was done, and I followed orders. Cabinet did in fact do that. The previous cabinet.
So he is kind of shielded by the.
He's shielded by cabinet decision. Yeah.
Cabinet decision.
And cabinet decision, by virtue of, unless it is that they directly contravene some law, and this is where we need constitutional reform, etc. A lot of cabinet decisions, and parliamentary decisions by extension, unless it is that they clearly contravene some law, and you're talking about a country in which many of the laws, and one of the issues
ancient.
are antiquated. You have the copyright law, you have the wandering law, which impacts on juvenile justice, for example.
What about if I'm just sitting wandering?
Yes.
Yeah,
we don't have police. We
facetious,
don't have police.
So we have a lot of laws that are old that don't really even.
Or the legal system doesn't adequately compensate or address what will be complex financial maneuvering. We had essentially is a previous administration very cleverly looking at a lot of loopholes and making sure that everything is legal. What we need is a reform of the financial laws. This is really anti-money laundering legislation, and so I think that complexity would have to come in and thing.
So do you think all that money is kind of just gone?
I think most of it is gone.
Most of it is gone, and we just need to basically make sure the structures are in place so the loopholes through which that money vacated are closed.
I think, well, more than that, I think what we need to get done is to ensure that you see where the exit point of the money is and say, So if it is that somebody cousin, friend, was the final recipient, whether in terms of a contract or a service rendered, and so for this money that is legitimately, supposedly, given by executive decision, to capture it at the end point, and then ensure that there's some form of either restitution or some retroactive thing. But the reality is, good example, provision of services. But you and I are both professionally have engaged in provision of services. You engage in 3D thing, right? Now, a market price for one of your drawings, regular market price, somebody, even if you're a prodigious talent itself, could be $200,000. But if your friend in the ministry say, Francis, charge $1 million.
And I can text some, and you can
text
text some.
some.
All right. Well, we gotta go.
You see, there's how do you provide a criminal case against that?
Very, very thought-provoking. I hope you guys think about that. We have to go to a quick break. I've been getting the eye for the last minute. While we're on this break, Guyana, I would just like you to consider this little fact here. So the world population is increasing at an alarming rate. There will be another 1 billion people in another few years. And at this rate, I am pretty sure Santa is going broke. Right? So, but luckily this year, we're going to try in the break to get Jennifer Westwood's number so Santa could call her up and ask for a raise. Because that money may have been gone legally. Back in a minute. Ho, ho, ho. Ho, ho, ho. We're back in the studio with Ruel Johnson, writer and all things, all things creative.
No.
Writer,
I can't sing.
activist, now working with Ministry of Culture.
Education, but
Education, formerly Ministry of Culture, and off defense. So, we were just talking about corruption and sort of like the clawback, the likelihood of us getting back some of this money that has just flown the coop. Like the guy that took the pay raise to himself, the $28 million, just kind of beat out, you know? He just kind of, I'll be back, and just stepped out for a second.
That's a good example. There was technically nothing illegal about that. A board is allowed to award emoluments or whatever to staff, right?
So he just awarded his own emolument.
And it was legal required, his signatures, 2 signatures. He signed, another director, Carver Duncan, signed.
So it was legal.
And so it was legal.
Okay, y'all stop saying the man thief the money.
So
illegally. So can we
illegally awarded himself
should we
the
have
money?
a term like legal theft? No.
Because
the law is, you don't, and here's the thing. They say ignorance of the law is no excuse, right? Yeah. The bit of law I studied, I learned that bit, and that's where I start scratching my head. And because the law is so, and there's another the philosopher guy that says, every profession is a conspiracy against the laity. Yeah. And really what he encapsulates there is the language that we use when we talk about certain things in itself conspires against the common man that may not understand that sort of English, that you don't butt into in every day. You know, we don't go to the store and say, in consideration of the forbearance of the puri that hath sit on this day, the 24th of August, in thine puri chest, yes. Right? We don't say that. We're like, let me get a puri. So it's very difficult, I find, to get people, number one, to engage with these things. Because once you get to a level of complexity, some people switch off. But I also want, and I hope you guys realize that the show is about encouraging you every single week to take an active part, to play a part in your democracy, because your government will be as strong as you are and as strong as your demands for something that works.
Yeah, I remember I was on the very first installment of the show, and this was about the Sunday before elections, right? And I remember saying specifically, no matter how the elections came out, Guyanese need to take a more active part in democracy. It has to do with the concept of citizenship.
And we were talking about history earlier. You were saying that you read a lot of history. Yeah. And that in a sense, it's cyclical, right? Yeah. Scampishness go never done, right? From we born, there has been scampishness, there have been crooks. Yeah. Until we dead, there will need to be people that are willing to keep them in check. I know you've gone out, great personal risk to yourself. Yeah. Myself, I had some very exciting times this year with the police in my house, you know, sent there by Kwame McCoy and his partner, this mechanic, right? Ended up in my house with guns and all the like. For me, filming 2 people rolling up a spliff on a police car, which I don't think people should be arrested for smoking marijuana, but it's the principle of it, right? And the fact that they ended up in my house. And to this day, the mechanic guy is still getting contracts from the police. He's just chilling, right? Kwame McCoy, who knows where he is, but no justice. But I am not alone. That's like a small thing compared to all the people that are still waiting on justice. Let's talk about the delivery of justice in Guyana. What do you see that needs to happen with our judicial system and the enforcement mechanism? Because I saw a very flowery video about the police the other day on the Department of Public Information's page. And I was like, that's not the Guyana police, I know. It's aspirational. Let's just be honest. It's aspirational. They got a Christmas present there. It looked great for PR, but that's not the police, I know. And we keep failing to talk about what is really rotten at the core of
In the
whether
state
it's
of
our
Denmark?
justice system or legal system or ministerial system? Is it that when you get into power, you just suddenly feel that you need to take ownership of all these things and then you start defending them?
There's the reality is this. It's the whole bad apple principle and so. But at the end of the day,
Well, we don't grow apple in Guyana. Monkey apple. The bad monkey apple spoils the bunch.
We
Keep it local.
The challenge for any government is that whether it is that the bad monkey apple or the good monkey apple prevails in the barrel, unless you own the barrel. You're responsible for the barrel.
Yeah.
And you have to take the barrel as it is.
But do you need to defend? Because afterwards, being in opposition is like having the luxury of looking in the barrel, and you could tell everyone around you like, that monkey apple is rotten. This one going bad. Look, I told you this would corrupt the rest. But then when you own the barrel now, you're like, well, let's turn it.
You end up defending the barrel. That's the problem. You end up defending the barrel.
Yeah, you end up defending the barrel.
The problem is, as you have a right to defend the barrel, because it's your barrel. It's your responsibility. But what you also have to do is ensure that you weed out. And there has been some aspect of that. I could think. I mean, at the risk of sounding apologist, one of the key things that the people, officers who were involved in torture, for example, which is a gross human rights violation, instead of getting promoted, they had to go.
Yeah, because those guys were getting
but they were about to get promoted.
Yeah, they were.
So that's a case of some bad monkey apples.
But that's also just scratching.
Let's scratch the reality. The reality is, for the analogy, is that you have a barrel comprised of a set of monkey apples. Most of them have been just touched by a bit of rot. So what do? You get rid of the entire golden apple, or you try to scrape off the rot? And that's the only choice you have. You have to try to scrape off the rot.
Mind you, there's so much corruption in Guyana. We have good monkey apple, touched monkey apple, many touched ones. Yeah. Some rotten monkey apple.
Some completely rotten ones. We have to get rid of them.
Monkey apple wine. That deep. That is just so corrupt. It's just monkey apple moonshine. Right?
And that is the toxic thing. So I think that's the challenge. I mean,
and it's kind of like corruption is entrenched in our
It is entrenched.
We're just honest about this.
And this is something that, in opposition, it's good to point out. Yes, under your rule, we became the most corrupt country in the region and one of the bottom 30 most corrupt countries in the world. But the reality of dealing with corruption in a practical manner threatens, and this is what I think the major challenge has been. Often the most corrupt people are also the most competent in their respective fields. And that, I think that is what a lot of ministries have been faced with. You have these very corrupt people, but you take them away and the machinery falls down. Precisely because the corrupt system seeks to perpetuate itself.
It does. And succession planning is something we see. Like you could take one guy out of ministry and it grinds to a halt because this guy doesn't know. But he hasn't trained someone else or made sure
deliberately,
someone else.
Very often deliberately. They keep the things to themselves. So when you see certain people retain, and it galls me.
So you yourself, right? I know that, and most Guyanese will know, you're engaged in a lengthy letter writing campaign and an advocacy campaign with regard to getting accountability out of specifically the Ministry of Culture over things like the Caribbean Press, the Carifestus spending, which you queried many times, and just general nefarious corrupt activities that were going on in a place that was receiving hundreds of millions of dollars.
Billions.
So now, billions of dollars. Let's just put the figure out there, right? So now that the shoe is sort of on the other foot and you have an opportunity to work with the administration, you're in the den, as it were. What are your thoughts now? Is there clear evidence of this corruption that you saw on the outside, or is it, as you said, yes, this was corrupt, but it was done through a legal loophole or the like? And what are you yourself trying to do to make sure this doesn't happen in the future? Not that they put you in charge of the whole place, but as a cog in that collection of gears, what are your thoughts and what are you doing?
I advise the ministers, both ministers, on cultural policy formulation. That's the primary thing right now. The problem we've had with management of culture overall, which is one of the things, which is essentially the overall thing I've railed against, is that it isn't done by any sort of policy. So when you have this sort of ad hoc arrangement, that is where corruption and incompetence takes hold. Ever since the change of government, one, for this political will to get stuff done differently.
For a long time, we had political will.
No, we didn't. Oh, yeah, we had a lot of, yeah, right. We had a political will
not. Yeah,
refused to.
Like the Miss Universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will not win the crown this year. It's Miss Philippines.
So there's definitely political will from both the senior and junior minister. The fact that the thing that you attended.
Yeah, you had a cultural consultation,
right?
At the convention center.
I actually I was able to quote the senior minister at something he did in Jamaica a couple of years ago, which he said the government should not be primarily involved in cultural policy formulation. And the whole philosophy is that stakeholders should be involved. And that's why I'm going under, the premise I'm going under. With regard to accountability and stuff like that, frankly, I saw in the press, I read in the press, the Sports and Arts Fund audit. And with regard to whether it is that I had any affirmation of my suspicions and stuff like that, from what I read, yeah, there's definitely affirmation. You have millions of dollars not not accounted for. It's actually worse than I thought.
How many millions of dollars? Because we throw these things around, right? The average person is gonna spend most of the year, just the average person, you cooking or driving or something, you spend most of the year trying to see $1 million. But when we hear about, and then like someone steals a phone on the road for $15,000 or $30,000, and we hear about them because the pictures in the paper the next day, like, this guy stole a phone. But when we talk about money missing from ministries and things, we're like, oh, it's like a couple million. I think it was like 30 million. Let's be specific. So people could go to bed with that. Just remember it. You know when you sleep tonight? 30 million. Oh, God. You know?
The average public service worker, I think it's about $70,000. In a year, they would not see $1 million.
Well, I know a public service worker that went to China. Actually, this year's Miss Universe, think about this, Guyana, right? That went to China for 5 years, studied, came back to Guyana, and is not earning that at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
And she's extremely bright. Right. She seems to be an extremely bright
well
person.
Qualified, speaks a foreign language, and yet, I mean, that's one of the reasons I was upset about the whole 50% raise thing. But continue.
No, the out of $300 million, 167 million going to be accounted for. So if this you consider
100 and how much?
67 million
couldn't be accounted for out of $300 million
in 3 years of a fund that has been going on for almost 10, and this is 3 years in which it actually had parliamentary scrutiny.
So they didn't have parliamentary scrutiny for the rest of it.
No, this is 2012 to 2014. This is the years the audit covered. So previously, from 2008, 2007, I believe, going forward, there was virtually no scrutiny.
No scrutiny. Ruel.
So you can imagine the amount of monies that have gone missing. Out of 500 million.
I tell you, I cannot, because I tell you, right, when that whole 600 million missing from the public service ministry, I had to hold my head, right? I feel like I dropped my tennis roll, it fell out of my mouth, and I had to hold my head, because I had to suddenly start to fathom what $600 million look like, what it could do for the communities that are still deprived of roads, for the kids going to school hungry, for the lights that we don't have in certain places in Guyana.
Public servant raises.
Public servant. Look, we have to go to a quick break. Once again, we find ourselves with another person Santa could take a loan from when he needs to get those extra presents. So there's the people that were at the Ministry of Culture. Back in a second. Okay, and we're back in the studio for the Indie Mix closeout for this year with Ruel Johnson. I called you Senor Ruel Johnson earlier. We could go through the languages. Bienvenue, Monsieur Johnson. Thank you for coming today. So we're just having a nice light conversation about very heavy topics that we started going through. picking through. So before we went to break, Ruel made my afro grow an inch just in case we've come back from the break and it looks a bit more puffy. It's because I found out that through the audit done on what was the Ministry of Culture of $300 million, they couldn't account for 167 of it, and this is for a 3-year period out of like about 8 years, where these guys should have been on the scrutiny. So forgive the growth. I hope the camera is able to pull out to catch my whole head now as it swells. So let's talk about another thing I love to think about. Where is all the money going? Because it's not like people have just been throwing up drink stand and puri shop with the money. It's $180-something million or $28 million. You could do a lot more with that. So, I mean, and the other thing being that it seems like no major criminals, up to now, we can't, even though we know big names like a Salem, you might hear that name around and you know he owned Hotel Tower on Edge. Nobody cares these people are drug dealers. You go, you party, you take your selfie in the bathroom. There's a certain sort of hypocrisy that is also entrenched in Guyana, where you see a big building go up on Camp Street. You know that this one set of people maybe own most of Camp Street. You know there's always whisperings of drugs and drug money. But you're up there taking your selfie. You know, do Guyanese really care about corruption, or do we just like to talk about it? Before we get into where the money goes, because that's another discussion. What do you make of it?
A couple of years ago, I think then Minister of Home Affairs, I mean, I like to call her Gail Rwanda, Gail Teixeira, one of the usual fits of a program. And to be fair to her, I think back then it was genuine, primarily because of her ignorance on how the depth of it was. That she said that yes, we acknowledge there are drug dealers in the society, and I for one will be boycotting. I will not stay away from the establishment, etc.
But really, they meant we acknowledge there are drug dealers in our society, and we love them.
But no, I think to be fair to her, I think then she was genuine in the sense that she was extremely blinkered. And then when the whole Roger Khan Phantom Squad thing sort of erupted.
I mean, WikiLeaks had it's on WikiLeaks right now, Guyana. I don't know if you ever read one WikiLeaks.
Cable,
If you never read one, just go to WikiLeaks and type Guyana and feast your eyes. I mean, we have a cable that says our president, I think it was Barra Jack at the time, was fraternizing with what became one of the biggest drug dealers in Guyana. Yeah. And this stuff, people just like, nah. Let's catch that guy that stole the phone
or the guy
on the road.
Or the guy
like
smoking some weed.
The guy smoking weed. Let's put him in jail for 4 years. Yeah, but never mind.
The thing is, the corruption has become so ubiquitous in the society. You know, so widespread. It's cancerous. And
it's like a cancer. It is.
It is a cancer, and it's like you saying that I will not, as a principle, fraternize or deal with or patronize or not talk to anybody who's involved with who's been involved with crime or by this public corruption or drug dealing and stuff like that.
You might find yourself alone.
You will find yourself alone. Or very, you won't be able to shop at, you won't be able to buy certain things in Guyana, things that you might like. You won't be able to get a drink in a public place. You'll not be able to...
in a public place. I mean, but here's the thing though, there's just so many bars, restaurants.
I'd have to stop my son from speaking to certain friends. And you find it, I mean, if it is you are part of a PTA, for example, and you are, somebody else selected the PTA, and you have to deal with a person, the reality is, particularly the middle class in Guyana, the reality is that they are, the drug dealers on your PTA. His child goes to your school, his son comes home by you. You tell your child not to.
That guy's a drug dealer, son. Well, here's my bright idea for the day, right? Because it doesn't matter where you look in the Caribbean, and we look at drug policy, it's basically a war that has failed, right? Yeah. I'll tell you why the war on drugs has failed if you've never really considered it for yourself. Because if you've not noticed, more drugs continue to be shipped every year in ever more creative fashion. Log, sawdust, fish, SSS tonic. Good God, SSS tonic, right?
That was a particularly
Everything,
tragic
cars,
case.
read everything. Drugs keep coming out again. They found Go Fast, Bosia. We even have submarines leaving Guyana with drugs in them. So it's not stopped the people that go into the drug trade, but what it has done is made sure that some of the vilest people in our society, people that not cared, that don't care to hire a hitman to close off the competition or put 2 bullets in you, some of the vilest characters in our society, by virtue of the fact they're willing to take on the risk to risk doing that drug operation and shipping that stuff out, where if you've seen the Waka Flocka video online, where a rapper came to Guyana to do a rap video on our drug trade.
Yeah.
It's called Chickens. These chickens go for $35. But apparently now it's $4,700, $4,700 US. And when a brick of cocaine goes from Guyana to the US, apparently it's around $47,000 or $45,000. So just to understand the amount of money that's being made here. So we have ensured through these drug regulation laws and the like that only the vilest people, the most corrupt, get access to the tons of money that they can then influence government. Because if you feel that the government really in charge, I mean, and a drug dealer is over here with $400 million, right?
Well,
they had a man in the papers that a woman got him to try and kill someone else for a snow cone. So it's no feat to me for a drug dealer to take all that money, and they have property, they have things. So why is it, do you think we're at this stage now? I'm being radical now, right? As it's Christmas. Is it at this stage where the government just needs to say, listen, everybody grow your own weed. You want to ship things, just ship it. Because the people that are doing it, society is growing up. I have grown up as from a kid to right now with my poofy afro, seeing these people walk the streets, happily enjoy their life. Are we communicating a double message to young people where we say, don't do drugs, but really we're saying, don't do too little drugs? Because if you're just on the corner with a spliff, jail. If you have a bus full of cocaine and you could give the police $6 million, and they only put the police in jail. Imagine that.
Let me put.
The guys never went to jail. The police. Yeah.
Let me put together. Let me put what might seem a radical thing.
We like radical. Let's do that.
I disagree that.
Not radicalism.
I disagree that the drug dealers are, by and large, necessarily the vilest people in the country. You have people whose grannies involved in drugs.
No, they're not all the violence, but I'm saying
but
controllers, the drug lords, the people that are willing to go kill because it's let's say it's not easy. It's not like mobby money.
Yeah, right? let me put it this way. But let me put it this way: if you look at and there's a nexus. If you look at the people who are involved in some of the most glaring killings in Ghana, or who's suspected of being involved, Kwame Wing, that wasn't a drug case. That had nothing to do with drugs. That had clearly to do with politics. The political system might have been supported, incidentally, inconveniently, by the drug trade. Right? My point is that the drug trade itself can only flourish, and not that's the trade in itself, but the attendant violence and undermining of systems that it comes with can only flourish when you have a system that is corrupt in itself, right? A drug dealer is a criminal. He knows he's a criminal, right? But when you have it is the people who are put in the place of public trust, who are facilitating criminal activity.
It emboldens you if you were.
Yeah, I think that person is far more corrupt, more vile than any drug dealer can be.
Oh, I agree with you.
Because it's a sort of this hypocrisy.
Like you double it up.
Yeah, and then you collect the corruption on one hand, then you collect the illegal money on the other. But actually tackling the drug trade, for me, it's far more complex than the. We have the whole issue of, say, demand in these primary markets. We are.
So you're basically saying, I'm glad you said that, right? So if Americans stop demanding our drugs, and the people in Europe stop needing drugs from us, right? Because normally the war tends to focus on brown people in the poorer parts of the world, like us, right? All these drugs are coming from Guyana,
it tends to focus on the supply chain as opposed to the endpoint. And it is not necessarily a bad thing to focus on the supply chain, but not enough has been done with regard to the demand aspect of it, right? The supply chain is, the guys in Colombia. Then you have the transit points like Guyana.
Transit point, there's a door.
Yeah, there's a revolving door.
No, we broke the door down.
You guys have fun,
right? And put a tarpaulin, so you just like
slide
you could
through.
just walk through a slide. Yeah.
And you have the sort of archaic attitudes to drug consumption. Most of our drugs go to the U.S.
Don't talk too much, Ruel, because people be coming to interview you after to ask you how you know.
The busting, the amount of bust.
So authority, like most of our drugs go to the U.S.
Well, we could see from the newspaper bust the frequency. I mean, they get busted in the U.S. It's hardly see any bust in England, for example, because it's a very large market, and America has its own issues to deal with. How to deal with cocaine consumption, for example. So we have the conversation earlier. While it may profit some drug dealers to cut the cocaine and make it have crack cocaine in poor markets, the reality is the purer the cocaine gets to America, the better off, because there's a sort of hypocrisy in the U.S. system, in which, and it has to do with color and race, etc., in which pure cocaine, white cocaine, is the party drug for movie stars, etc., and the upper middle class.
And I think it's been conclusively verified that, say, the white middle class use far more drugs than the poor black, because it's like
they have more money.
They have the money to spend on it, but the colored people normally get the brunt of the negative public attention for this. But what I'm saying is, are we not being hypocritical in our approach? If it is we're saying that
we don't have an approach.
We don't have an approach.
We have an approach you have an approach that is primarily dictated by two things. On the one hand, you have had the previous administration that has allowed it to fester, in which it's perfectly legit. I mean, I have some people who I have taken drinks with and stuff like that. I mean, who I would hail up and good and so. We have much respect for each other. That whose name has been called in the or suspected to have been in the drug trade, right? You don't know who is involved in it, so it's become so ubiquitous. You had people who throwing up, big businessmen who throwing up buildings and stuff like that. So it's money from the corruption. Then you hear the person's facilitated the drug trade in some way. So it's become so ubiquitous.
Yeah, because I mean they got buildings throw up in this country, 6-7 stories, empty for like a year, for months. And I wonder, are they paying their mortgage with hugs? Are you just going to the bank and hugging your manager, say, buddy, next month? You know, I just had $500 million to put it up, but I never thought about what I was going to put inside.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, I think we have to go to a break quickly. We're going to be back in a second. You just think about all those hollow buildings sitting there as we have a homeless population on our hands. Maybe when they see some of those assets, could turn it into some homeless shelters. Goodness knows we need some. So back in a second. 2 off defense as we take it away for the 5-minute close. I'm joined once again with, and you see I've done senor, we've done monsieur, right? I don't know what.
Sahib, you can try Sahib.
Sahib? Sahib, right. Sahib Johnson. We've got Ruel Johnson with us in studio today. Thank you very much for joining me on defense. So we've talked about a lot, and especially corruption and the like.
Yeah.
This being the closeout segment, is there anything on your mind that would you wish I had included, or you wanna leave us with a take home, or other things you reckon we should be looking out for in 2016 that may have affected us in 2015?
I just think that citizens need to be more participatory. We need to, and I guess it comes with education. This is why I think I see importance of the ministry I'm at, both in terms of the education, which is what we're thing, but culture and culture as well. You cannot make informed comment or informed participation in something that you don't really know about or you don't have the capacity to understand, right? So if there's to be, our education system needs to be fixed. That's why I'm glad that the minister in particular has taken a very direct approach to certain things.
So by next year, I mean, because I know I've covered.
By next year, these problems will remain.
They will remain, yes, because these are multi-decade problems in the making, right? We have a serious problem with literacy, for instance, but things like the equipment and general appearance of somewhere like the University of Guyana. We only got one university. So we got those other ones like Texila and those other shady places that I don't even know how they got accredited to practice in Ghana. Like seriously, someone needs to investigate that. But we have one national university, and it looks like a animal farm just before the animals revolted.
I'll say this: you need tertiary education reform. I think it's on the
agenda.
It's on the agenda.
But high.
Huh? No, it's high on the agenda. It's definitely high on the agenda. We also need, you and I were coming up, we're discussing engaging with workshops with regard to 3D rendering and stuff like that. One of the things the minister has spoken about, and this is where I could see, I criticize where I criticize, not because my boss will, but with revolutionary. Because the ministry has met certain companies on using technology in education, right? And the president had said it. You have the same sort of analog system in the digital world.
Yeah.
Right? And that has to change.
Can't work.
It cannot work. So I would expect that you'd see more of that in things. So, but we need people like you to come on board. The foreign companies who are well experienced and stuff like that will come in and help, but I think we need to use more of our local talent. One thing, and in that vein, one of the things which is my specific area, is cultural policy, etc. I think artists need to be more involved in participating. I know previously there wasn't the space, but there's the space now, but people aren't taking advantage of it. I mean, among the things that come on my desk that I've said, bring it to my desk, but it's gone through so many routes. Went to the president, went to the minister, the junior minister, and ends up in the same place, right? I was in the park yesterday. I used to go in the park and hang about, just to talk to people and stuff. And there was the last year's junior, I think, Calypso competition winner, hawking CDs that look like bootleg CDs, but original CDs of music on the park, and trying to get people to buy it. And for me, that is just sad.
It's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, it's a very young girl, but she's out there as of like 10 o'clock at night, trying to sell CDs, accosting person by person, after person, trying to sell. This is a junior Calypso competition win.
And the winner.
The winner.
We really need a lot of serious change, and it's across the board.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see it taking part in, say, in culture or in the Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
You come on the program and you say a thing. So if anything don't go like how you said the thing gonna go, we can pull back up the clip, and I will wear Travis Chase's jackets that I had at the beginning of the program.
And invite me on invite me on again.
And invite you on again. But I must say, I do appreciate that, and I hope people take a leaf out of this, that even though you're a critic of corruption and what doesn't go right and the like, even though you are working with the administration, you still use your voice to criticize where you don't see things. And this is something I hope everybody sort of really drills into your head, right? It doesn't matter which party you support. When elections is done, elections is done. Whoever won is spending our money. It doesn't care if it's PPP or the coalition. It's our money jointly that they're spending. And you need to hold them accountable. There are players around you, there are people in society around you that are always trying to make moves, or they're reading, or Ruel will go and find out. And you did a fantastic piece on the museum and all the corruption there.
Yeah.
You should go find it on Guyana Mosquito.
Yeah.
GT Mosquito.
Mm-hmm.
You should go find that piece. So you need to be involved. As many of you that look at this program or that see me on the street and come up and tell me some issues that will inform future programs, each of you has a role to play. Everyone can pick up a pen, write something up, make a post. If you're posting selfies in the toilet at Gravity, you could post something about, a situation you want changed. So I guess as I wrap up today, I want to wish you all the best for the season. And I hope that you're able to appreciate your neighbor more and see that every time you disagree is not cause for disrespect. Disagreement doesn't mean disrespect, but try and embrace each other as Guyanese. We're now moving into our 50th year of independence. Think about what that means and whether independence is something that's written in a book or it really represents independence of thought, making ourselves independent of the need to be so corrupt, or being independent of the need to speed down the road because of a culture of recklessness or not abiding by the law. So those are my wishes for Guyana moving into 2016, that we can get our act together, and this would be a place that both Ruel and I will be very happy to tell people, hey, come to Guyana, come to my country. This is the most beautiful place ever because it is such a beautiful land. And we just need to get through this stuff first. I almost said the word there, Ruel. Okay, so we're going to close for today with a ho, 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 and a Merry Christmas from myself, Ruel,
and Travis Chase's
and everyone and Travis Chase's jacket, and everyone else on the Off Defense team. We've got a Yannick, our producer here, always here behind the camera giving me the eye when I have my 2-minute slot for the ad break. So thank you for following us this year, and we hope you stay tuned to Off Defense in 2016. As usual, catch up with us on YouTube, Facebook, and if you're interested in being a sponsor, just contact HGPTV Channel 67. That's it from us for the year. Over to you.